Welcome back to Council Candidates Live, Round 2. I'm Sandy Jacobson. We're very glad you're here with us tonight. Our show has, this segment is one of 4, which gives a group of candidates for City Council a chance to answer a wide range of questions asked on video by community leaders. The League of Women Voters of Santa Monica Education Fund has randomly divided candidates into small groups so they can both answer the questions briefly, then interact with their fellow candidates in a roundtable forum. The candidates have signed a speaker's agreement confirming that they agree to adhere to program guidelines and ground rules, which include maintaining an atmosphere of respect and tolerance throughout the forum, and an understanding that standards of civility and courtesy will be strictly enforced by the moderator. Now let me introduce the candidates for segment 2 of Council Candidates Live, Round 2. We'll be talking with City Council candidates John Mann, Sue Himmelrich, Terrence Lader, and Whitney Scott Bain. First, we'll hear opening statements from each candidate, starting with John Mann.
Well, I'm running for City Council again because I'm still fed up with the way the city's being run. And I think we need a new kind of government. No more using cronyism and popular propaganda to get voters to vote for you, but you should vote for people who are independent and have no connection at all with any kind of special interest. And that's why I'm running for City Council. I want to take the money out of politics. I have a paperless, moneyless campaign. I'm a Green Party candidate, and I'm working for the people. I'm John Mann. I'm a man for the people, and I approve the statement.
Thank you. Sue, please.
My name is Sue Himmelrich, 22-year resident of Santa Monica. I'm on the Planning Commission. I'm an attorney at Western Center on Law and Poverty. I'm running for City Council because I believe Santa Monica is at a tipping point. I think that we need to make a choice about whether we are going to be a playground for the 0.1% or whether we are going to be a community with the social fabric, wonderful schools, and wonderful services that we are today. I think that the next 4 years will determine that. We have too much development. We have too much insider baseball in government. And I would like to see all of that end. I'd like to see checkbook detail in our budget. And I'd like you not to have to go and file a Public Records Act request in order to find out what's going on in your government.
Thank you, Sue. Whitney, please.
Hello, I'm Whitney Scott Bain. How are you doing? I've been here for 44 years, 44-year resident, and I've seen Santa Monica change for the good, some for the worse. And I love the city. What can I say? I love the city's heartbeat as well. I have a lot of support from the community, the Santa Monica Airport, the pilots and the aircraft mechanics. Ken Edwards community seniors are on my side. I worked in a lot of jobs here in Santa Monica, so I know what the people want, and I'm on your side.
Thank you. Terrence, please.
Hi, I'm Terrence Lader, lifelong 3-generation in Santa Monica. I really believe that we need to save the airport, so that would be yes on Measure D. To save the airport, that would be no on LC. I would like to bring back the nativity scenes. I would like to see that our city's preserved. I led the community effort to landmark Chez J Restaurant, which is one of the few historic landmarks left in our city to save, to make sure that we conserve and preserve our city. Vote now for later. That's votenowforlater.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidates. Now it's time for our first question from one of the leaders from our community, and it's about aging in place.
Hello, I'm Candace Shivers of Wise and Healthy Aging. For seniors that are currently under rent control and depend on that financially given their limited means, what do you see is needed for further support for them to age in place?
All right, Sue, how would you respond to that?
I have both of my parents, and my husband has both of his parents. So we have a family that really is 4 generations alive today. I understand the importance of bringing services to seniors and not requiring seniors to go to services. I personally have volunteered for Meals on Wheels. I work at Western Center, and we do litigation involving health services for seniors. So I believe that we need to vigilantly protect our seniors and bring services to them.
Thank you. Whitney Scott Bain, please.
Well, this is a great question because my mother was a victim of being forced out of her apartment. And she was 88 years old at the time. And I went to the Santa Monica City Council. Only 2 people called me back, and both of them gave bad advice. The other thing is Santa Monica Rent Control did nothing for her. Santa Monica Renters' Rights did nothing for her. The only person who did something for her was me. So we've got to protect our seniors, no matter what. You come to me, if I'm in the city council, I will listen to you. I will go down there and I will talk to that landlord.
Thank you. Terrence, please.
I believe in affordable housing, but I think our city government made a tremendous mistake by using RDA money on other projects, much like our $100 million Tongva Park. The idea that that money should have been used for affordable housing and to better our community, especially in the toughest areas of our community, is so important. The idea that Jerry Brown, who's looking to leave a great legacy, much like his father, came in with his books and made sure he took all that money home.
Thank you, Terrence. John Mann, please.
Well, one of the things that concerns me is the senior commission in this city is being run under nepotism. There's a lot of this sort of thing going on in the city, not just among the seniors, but senior community right now has lost their Camera Obscura building, which was really a delight to many of the seniors there. One of the things that I'm also concerned about is senior abuse. And not just physical and psychological abuse, but financial abuse. There's predators out there that are taking everything and going through the legal system and legally taking away all their possessions.
All right, so we all want to see seniors have the opportunity to live out the rest of their life in the best possible circumstances. But if they're already under rent control, what do you think would be the best thing to do to further support them aging in place? Sue? It's a tough question.
No, but I have to say that I agree with John. I've done elder abuse, financial abuse cases. This is a terrible problem. And I think that there's a socialization problem for seniors who become isolated in their homes, which is where WISE comes in, but also where Camera Obscura came in. I think that we relegate seniors to a second-class status and don't listen to their own voices enough.
But one might ask, is it the city's responsibility for older people? You spoke about your parents, and that obviously you're very involved. Whitney, you spoke about your mother.
Correct.
Is it the city's responsibility to step in and make sure that people, that elderly people are comfortable?
Oh, without question. I mean, we're all going to get old. I mean, the thing is, we have to respect our elders, and that seems to have disappeared. It's popped out, and nobody cares about them anymore. I go down to the Ken Edwards Center, and I speak with those nice seniors down there. I listen to them. I listen to their needs. I want to hear things, what they have to say. They have this vast, amazing knowledge that people just ignore, and they need to be taken care of. They need to be nurtured. They need to teach the younger people skills, manners, which are sorely lacking in this city, but they're great. They're a great resource, and we need to protect them. Especially the city council needs to step in and protect those people.
That's the job of the seniors commission, and they're not doing that job. I've been down to Ken Edwards myself. I met a woman on the promenade who looked lost, and she was looking for help. So I brought her over to Ken Edwards, and they were serving lunch, a free lunch, and I asked one of the women, the staff that was working there, if she could have the lunch because she was hungry. And they turned her down, and they treated her like a child.
One of the things that's so important that I've run a number of times since 2006 And one of the things that I've stood very strongly for is senior exemptions and sunset clauses on any of these props and the measures that the city keeps putting up. I think that's challenging to a lot of our senior community because not only do the owners have that, but they pass it along to the renters because of what the city leans on the long-time residents for these tax policies that they put on their properties. It's really very
So
tough.
you're not talking about renters there, you're talking about homeowners?
Well, it goes hand in hand. The seniors in the community, just because they came here, have been here for 50 years, they paid very little for their house. Now, just because the amount of has grown, the city feels that it's okay to come in and take a pinch out of them with measures like H and HH and things like that. And that's not the only ones that they're coming after.
It's not
with.
just the homeowners.
Hold on a second, Sue wanted to say something.
Thank you. I'll get back to H&H for a minute, but Prop 13 was meant to protect people who bought their house for low. People think that Prop 13 is changing the burden, and I am not sure whether that's right. And in part because people have lived in their houses for a long time, have a fixed tax rate that won't go up the way it does in other communities based on the appraised value. So wait 1 second. And then on everything, I think on YNYY and various other measures, there is a senior exemption and there is a hardship exemption. And on H&HH, which hasn't yet passed, it is a transfer tax which happens only upon the sale of your house, so isn't a burden on the living style of the current resident.
Well, once they
All right,
sell
hold
the
on a second,
property, though,
Terrence.
that they
John had tried to say
You know,
something.
one of the problems with our social system, and this is not just with seniors, it's not just in Santa Monica, the delivery system is so bureaucratic that most of the money that's supposed to go for services is being eaten up by administration, and the people who are working in these positions to help people, their attitude toward them is arrogant
Okay.
and smug.
Terrence, I'm going to let you have the last word, but very briefly, please.
Well, the idea that once someone sells their property, they've been there for 50, 60 years, that's the money that they have that is going to be able to keep them in good stead for the rest of their lives. Even that small part that the city calls a small part, which I think thousands of dollars taken out of that sale is no small part.
Okay.
They're going to be able to, live on that. I mean, you get right down to the parking tickets that the seniors that get. That's $65. How much money is that taken out of their food budget each for the month? You know.
Thank you. All right. So we've heard the candidates answer the first question pretty fully about the subject of term limits. No, that's not what the subject is. Sorry, guys.
That's a good subject.
That's a good subject.
Sandy, we all love you.
Right, for seniors having to do with aging in place. And so if you have an opinion on this, we're going to ask you to text 22333. Text the answer that you see in the parentheses on the screen, or the easiest way to vote is to go to pollev.com/citytv. You'll see each poll when it's open and just click to send in your vote. Now tell us your answer to this question. For seniors that are currently under rent control and depend on that financially given their limited means, what do you see is needed to further support them aging in place? A, preventing harassment. If that's the case, then you want to vote Prevent SM. Maximizing support services, Max SM. Better outreach, Outreach SM. All of the above would be All SM, and none of the above, because they already have low rents, None SM. We'll be back with the results before the end of this segment to see how your answers compare with the answers of the candidates. Now we're on to our next question, which has to do with the airport.
I'm Rob Schwenker, the president of the Santa Monica Jaycees. And my question is, let's say despite all of the efforts to the contrary, the airport under federal or voter mandate continues to operate over the long term in Santa Monica. What would you do to improve the fractured relationship between the airport and residents?
All right, Terrence, what would you do?
Well, the idea that this has become so contentious is really a sad thing. The airport has been there for nearly 100 years, and the community should be coming together to find solutions. The government, the city government as it stands today, has been working for 3 decades to take this from the people, and I think that their efforts have engineered that gap between the communities there. It's so important that we have a civil and level-headed conversation about that. We need that airport. It's very important.
Thank you, Terrence. Whitney, what do you think?
The airport is an amazing place, and it's also very important that we keep it. As Terry said, it's almost 100 years old. The thing is, at the Santa Monica airport itself, we have a family day that the Santa Monica Airport Association puts on, a man by the name of Josh. And we have kids come down there, and they get to sit in aircraft that a lot of the pilots come over and they donate their time. You should see their faces beam on them, especially the moms and pops that come down there too. We get about 175 families on the weekend, and it's great.
Thank you, Whitney. John, please.
Well, I had a career for 20 years working for airlines. I've worked for 5 different airlines since 1975. And I was the first candidate years and years ago to bring up the subject of closing the airport down, and I was mocked and ridiculed. I wanted at that time for the airport to become a park. And it should be a park because we're not taking the airport from anybody. We're taking it back because it belongs to the people. We're not taking, the airport is not for the people. It doesn't serve us. So I want.
Thank you, John.
All right.
You'll have a chance to fill that out. Sue, please.
I agree with John. I am yes on LC, no on D. And I feel that way because I think that the airport is, as in many aspects of our city, serving special interests. I believe that the people who use the airport and who are flying large jets in and out of the airport are not people who live in our community for the most part. And I believe that the toxic, ultrafine particulate pollution that's being sprayed upon our citizens in our neighborhoods is something we shouldn't have to tolerate.
Okay, so it sounds like it breaks up pretty evenly. 2 for, 2 against the airport.
It's 2 for and 12 against.
I've only got 4 of us in
There's
here.
14 candidates.
Oh, okay. But we're just talking to these 4 candidates. So let's,
So do we get to like face off now?
yeah, I want to see a face
Round
off.
robin.
Sweetly, nice.
Gloves off?
Yes, gloves off, but nice. Stay civil.
Well, as I was saying before, it doesn't serve the people. And it serves the wealthy, Harrison Ford, people like that don't live in Santa Monica. The city leases the airport properties to Atlantic Aviation, I believe, and they turn around and sublet it for twice as much money. But is it 10 times?
Yeah,
well, I've heard
we
different.
lease it for $200,000 and they sublease it for $2.1
That's
million.
outrageous.
All right, you guys, how do you respond to that?
I think it's really important that we look at the fact that because of that airport, we have an 8-mile restricted airspace over Santa Monica that is not invaded by any other airports around. LAX could actually use the Santa Monica airspace as a incoming flight pattern. We also have a height limit that is around the airport, even up into West LA for the takeoff and the landing paths that keeps the height requirements way down. Once the airport is gone, the idea that the development that will move in there, Tongva Park cost $100 million to develop 8 acres. That's 227 acres. Where's the money to green that or turn it into waterfalls and you know, and a Central Park. I would love that if that was what it was actually geared for.
The city has
but it's
a
not.
budget of
They want
$550
to.
million.
Their responsible development. We've seen it over the decades. What responsible development from this city government means,
Okay.
and that has nothing to do with forests and waterfalls over there.
Sue.
Yeah, let me just say that Measure LC specifically says that the City Council regains control over the operations of the park, and the development has to remain at its current level.
And we can
This
trust
park,
them to do that.
excuse me, I didn't interrupt you when you were repeating yourself. So Measure LC also provides that in order to build anything other than what is currently there, we need a vote of all of the residents of this city. And certainly on the city council, and I believe John too, would not allow development to occur at that
Well,
park.
frankly, I don't trust the city council not to build on that park. They want to build a university, an international university there if we let them. But that's one of the things that being a part of residocracy, we're going to stop that from happening.
It'll cost $1.5
Just let 'em
billion.
try.
It'll
sorry.
cost $1.5 billion to try to like even do anything there, to like tear everything down. You got to dig down 300 feet, you know, to
Why
get rid
is
of all
that?
the carcinogens that are in there from World War II, from McDonnell Douglas.
Well, it's
You
about
got to clear
time.
all that out.
Jet fuel.
Now,
about time we cleaned
nobody
it up.
talks about the carcinogens that are on the 405, the 10, Sepulveda, Centinela. There's 50,000 cars on Centinela alone a day. You know, and that's proven. Measure
Well, that's
D,
why we need to have mass rapid transportation that's free.
not in that area. You know, it's not going to happen. Not in our lifetime.
Well,
Well,
we
but
can
there-
close the airport.
There's
That's
one-
not going to happen either,
Oh, yes,
according to the
it is.
1948 agreement.
They have done studies showing that the
lease is
kind
up.
of pollution, excuse me, the kind of pollution that is being experienced 660 meters away from the airport is far higher than any pollution that is experienced near the 405 or the 10 freeway. And it's a different kind of pollution because the chemicals that are contained in leaded jet fuel are more toxic than the gas we're putting in our cars today.
All right, I'm going to let each one of you have one more sentence. Let's see how concise you can be.
Our city can't stand another car on the highway trying to get in and out of town, and that would put 20 to 50,000 people in that area. Residocracy was started by Armin Melkonian,
Okay,
who
that's
was
two
a
sentences.
who was a engineer and an architect for
Terrence.
Playa Vista. That should tell you what
All right,
residocracy
Whitney,
stands for.
can you sum it up?
Sum it up, vote for Measure D because that allows the people of Santa Monica to vote whether or not they want to keep the airport open or closed.
Yes,
LC allows city council to decide. And
I'm going to
obviously,
pretend there was a semicolon in there.
there is a semicolon in
Okay,
there.
Sue? In one sentence.
Measure D ties the city's hands so that nothing will change at the airport in perpetuity, the smallest lease, unless we have a vote of all of the people, and I am against it.
Okay,
The
and John?
1948 lease is up next year. This is our only opportunity to take that land back. It was bought with a bond in the 1920s that was raised by the people of this city for a park.
Okay.
It's our land, and we're going to take it back.
All right. Very good, you guys. We're doing live audience polling tonight, and we're asking you to participate with your vote on the question you see on the screen. Text your answer to 22333. Send the answer that you see in the parentheses, or go to pollev.com/citytv to vote online. Our next question has to do with involving younger residents.
Hi, I'm Jason Eastloss, editor of Santa Monica Next, and this is my question. What will you do as a city council member to increase participation in local government by young Santa Monica residents who are currently underrepresented in the discussions about the city's future?
Well, that's a good question. I'll tell you, there has to be more community involvement with the young people, and a lot of them just aren't interested, which is a shame. If we take little, segments from like maybe the YMCA, YWCA, Boys Club, we elect an individual from each one, and we come together, young women, young men, listen to their problems, talk to the kids of the community, Let's work together with them and listen to their needs and work on their needs.
Thank you. Sue, I see you shaking your head.
I actually, so I have a 21-year-old and a 24-year-old. I know Jason very well. I have mentored a young woman who will be on the rent control board the next time, because I think it's important to not just mentor younger people, but to encourage them to get involved and to work for them to get involved. There's another young woman who is now on the Commission on the Status of Women who I've worked with, and these are not my own children who don't even live in Los Angeles, but I think it's important to establish individual relations with younger people and help them to realize their potential.
Thank you. Terrence?
Well, I've been lucky enough to live here all my life and to be able to see that some of these young folks, they've lived here for the last 20 years in a construction zone. Every street's been torn up. We've got orange cones all over the place. Just to be able to get out of town to an appointment or somewhere, they're frustrated. So it's really important that we need a in-city job training program and place those kids in jobs in Santa Monica.
Thank you, Terrence. John?
If I was a young kid growing up nowadays, I would be angry. I'm angry anyway because I'm an old man.
You're an old guy.
But my generation, we were the protesters. And I protested for civil rights, against the war, battle in Seattle, and numerous other. But the problem with our kids here in Santa Monica, they go to school here. And they go to Santa Monica College, and they can't get their classes. And nobody really cares. Santa Monica College, I've mentioned this before, is turning into an international university. Our kids should have first priority to register for classes.
Thank you. By our kids, do you mean, we're in the round table part now, so by our kids, do you mean residents of Santa Monica?
Residents or kids that went to school here?
Wouldn't that be residents?
Yes.
No, some
Okay.
voucher.
Well, there's some
voucher.
vouchering, yeah.
But I have a question. I thought the question was, how do we get them more involved in our community?
That is the question.
And maybe I'm wrong about the answers, but I have to say, as a parent, I believe the best way, and I think all of us are doing it by running for city council, the best way to show kids what they're able to do is by modeling for them. So the more that we can positively engage with each other, the more that we engage ourselves in our community, the more I think we will see them engage in our community.
Terrence, hold on, Whitney.
It's coming up to the holiday season right now, and when as I was growing up, the nativity scene and the menorah in the park brought all the communities, churches and synagogues together, everybody enjoying themselves. And now this Tuesday is coming up a vote about public gatherings on the beach altogether and how some of those are going to be banned. The city council as it stands and the former city council driving the people further and further apart and not allowing them to gather and connect, I think that's really very important. Everybody who's sitting up here today is for change, is a new breath of fresh air in the council. It's just which way the voter would like to go is the important answer here. I think it's really important that we bring the community together and especially nurture the youngsters and the seniors.
Thank you, Terrence. Whitney.
There's a lot of kids that show a lot of promise. There's a young girl over at Santa Monica High School, very bright young lady. If we take the best, and even the ones that are just interested in working in Santa Monica, working with people, working with their peers, showing them as an example, a shining star. We're the ones that have to be their mentors, as Sue said, and that's great. The pros, the cons, they have to see what the world's all about in the political world. But the thing is, if we can lead the way for them and show them, the things that nobody else will ever teach them, that's a great thing to have.
The problem, too, is that when kids are growing up in Santa Monica and affluent communities like ours, they're not really prepared for the real world. And they're being enabled, they're taught to be confident and that they're really good at everything they do, and when they have to face the real world, it's hard because the world that they're growing up in is falling apart. And
Well-
I don't know the answer to that.
No,
but
there's a lot of us that don't know the answer to that.
Story for another day.
Yes, it is. So let's talk. Have you weighed in yet with your vote on our live audience poll? We're doing live text polling tonight as part of our program and inviting you to tell us your opinion on questions we're asking the candidates. If you want to vote via text, send us the info in the parentheses to 22333 or vote online at pollev.com/citytv. So let's see who's up next for our last question.
I'm Sherry Davis, Chair of Community for Excellent Public Schools. When redevelopment agencies were eliminated by Governor Brown, we lost $57 million that had been approved by the City Council for improvements to the Santa Monica High School campus that would have rendered recreational and cultural facilities available as community assets. Do you have any ideas about how to raise new revenues to make this joint use project possible?
John, how would you raise revenues?
Well, I've been talking about this a lot. And I think Santa Monica's citizens have been taxed enough. We've been very generous. And there's a huge budget of $5.5 billion. What I would do is I would create a community group, an ad hoc group of accountants, and have them sit down and divide up the budget and go over it, take different sections of it, and then come back to the city staff and tell them how to cut the waste out of our budget.
All right, Terrence, what would you do?
Well, I think that one of the things, like much like the Santa Monica Civic, since it's closed in July, we've spent over $1 million of city money on consultants just to talk about what may be the future of that. It's really very important. There was a lot more than $57 million taken away from us. It was the right to be able to have that money here because it was misused. We need to bring private interests, philanthropy in here, not developers and not people that want to exploit the city, but people that can stand and join in with that.
Thank you, Terrence. Sue?
Well, first, I think we have to make the distinction that the schools are not directly funded by the city, except to the extent that the city does fund the schools to the tune of $16 million a year through an existing joint use agreement, but the schools receive most of their funding from the state. That being said, we do have a $550 million budget. We could also find ways, because school is within a quarter to a half mile of the train, to find infrastructure district funds for the school.
Thank you, Sue. Whitney, please.
Well, I don't think they're going to make any money having a bake sale at Santa Monica High School. So Jackson Brown had a benefit concert, which helped the Barnum Hall, which was great. This was years ago. And he did a great job. If we can have the community come together, maybe donate some money, have a concert, have like a film festival or something, the proceeds go to the schools. That helps out quite a bit. But we do have a lot of frivolous spending in the city, ridiculous spending in the city, and that's got to stop. We can take some of that waxed fat that they have and then put it towards the schools and our kids for their education. That will help.
Thank you, Whitney, and thank you, all of you. I like the idea of a bake sale. That's how we used to raise money, but I recognize that you might raise some money, but not enough.
It certainly will take a long time to get you to $57 million.
Yeah, that's a lot of cookies, right?
And nobody's putting nuts in the brownies anymore.
Yeah, I
They're
know.
putting other things in them there,
But
Sandy,
are
that
there
really
other
don't.
ways cities can raise money aside from taxes? Any new thinking on that?
They can float
Well,
bonds.
one of the things, I'm a teacher, and I retired now, and I go around different schools as a substitute, and I've noticed that the school system here has a lot of money already. I mean, if I've traveled in foreign countries, where in Mexico, for example, and there's a really good education system there. The same thing in Europe, but it's a different kind of approach to education, and that's one of the things that we have to catch up with the modern world and change our approach, because it's not like it was 200 years ago. We still teach in a classroom. There are better ways for learning to take place than in a classroom where you have chaos.
Well-
and the day after Halloween is the worst day.
Well, all that candy high. The thing is that the question really referred to facilities that had been approved by the city, the recreational facilities and cultural facilities. So this isn't really strictly about the education. Those facilities would have enriched the whole city, it seems.
And
So-
that's why I believe that the fact that they're within half a mile of the train station, because there are funds now for improving facilities and encouraging, and most of the teachers, by the way, are coming in from out of the city, that there is a way to make that all work together with the new Civic Auditorium, which is adjacent to Santa Monica High School, which is, I believe, where most of this money will be expended. I think that there is a way to make that work with the new metro coming into downtown.
Terrence.
I think we're in a very unique situation here when we see some of the sports teams and is the Miramar, as a matter of fact, owned by a multi-billionaire. If they want to be involved in Santa Monica, let them get philanthropic here and start putting some money where their mouth is and doing some enriching in the cultural area, especially where youth is involved and the seniors. They could be able to step in instead of exploiting and trying to overdevelop our city. This is a gem. This is a very rare bird for the entire nation. Santa Monica is, and the history and what's up. And the idea that somehow they're going to be even looking into placing casinos in some of the hotels that are on the ocean in the future, is ridiculous.
Thank you,
It's
Terrence.
very sad.
Whitney, do you want to add anything?
Sure, I'd like to meet Eli Broad, sit down and talk with him, and we could probably come to an agreement. Also, we need responsible architects like Ron Goldman and his company, his friends. They're great. They can come in, they can redesign things, they can make it aesthetically pleasing. Eli Broad's, benefit, we could really, really make this city look great.
One of the things I noticed being a teacher is in a classroom, the motivation of some students is really high. And then there's another group of kids that are just in class and joking around, texting each other, passing notes and electronically. And the hardest students the most motivated students of all that I see are the illegals. They want so much to be an American.
Okay, but that's not exactly on point
It's not
here.
on point, but it's just an example
Okay.
of it's not money that's going to solve the problem.
All right, Sue, I know you seem to have something you want to add, and I'll let you have the last word.
I just think that we are a country of immigrants, and all of us were immigrants except the original people who lived here, and I don't think any of us are those people. And it is one of the great stories of our country that we left wherever we were and we came here and we've all been successful.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Sue Himmelrich and Whitney Scott Bain, Terrence Lader, and John Mann for joining us tonight. Now let's take a look at our audience poll results. What did our audience think? Well, let's see. On the subject of seniors that are currently under rent control and depend on that financially, given their limited means, what do you see is needed to further support them aging in place? 13% felt that preventing harassment would do the job. 75% said maximizing support services would do the job. Outreach didn't get any votes, and 13% said all of the above. And nobody voted that they already have low rents, they don't need any help. Thank goodness for that. That's Santa Monica. Okay, we're going to take a short break to change our group and bring in our next group of candidates. Stay tuned for our next segment where we'll be talking with Richard McKinnon, Jennifer Kennedy, and Phil Brock. We'll be right back.